The Science Basement!
Hello and welcome to the Science Basement podcast, a podcast for people who love all things science. I'm your host Sujay, and I want to say that I'm joined by my co-host Anastasia. However, Anastasia joins us from the other side of the table today. So, welcome back, Anastasia.
Hello, it's nice to be back.
And we are also joined by Dr. Wutele Vaikar. He's a neuroscientist and research coordinator at the Helsinki Institute of Life Science, also known as High Life. It's one of the specialized academic subunits of the University of Helsinki. He specializes in behavioral neuroscience, focusing on automated home cage monitoring to study rodent behavior in a minimally invasive way. But today he's going to talk about something else, isn't it, Wutele?
Hello, thank you for introduction and happy to be here with you talking about reproducibility.
Great. It's nice to have both of you.
I guess I should also just say a few words about myself because
Sure.
I believe that many people might have forgotten me. So sad. But yes, I used to be a host in this podcast as well. Those were very nice days. Go listen to the past episodes. But for now, I sort of moved on new projects, including this reproducibility thing that we will be talking about today. So very excited.
Yes, and by the way, she was the one who recruited me 1.5 years ago.
Yes, be nice to me.
And maybe I can also add a few details. So indeed, I moved to Finland already in 1998 to collaborate on the neuroscience field, to study animal behavior, specifically mouse behavior, and did it for 2 decades. But now during last 10 years, I'm gradually shifting more towards laboratory animal science, and one of the issues that interests me there is indeed the good scientific practice and reproducibility, the best practice of the experimentation.
And you have over 50 scientific publications, right, to date?
Yes, thank you for finding it out. During last 5 years, I have found how powerful and good is networking and collaboration. So I'm involved in many different networks, but they all have a same eventual goal to make biomedical research more reliable and better and more trustful.
Great. So what exactly is reproducibility? I see that it has the TEA in the end. So it's a very nice spin on the word. But could you briefly explain for our listeners what exactly is this group, reproducibility?
T. It's a T as a TEA as a drink, and it's a play of words. Basically, it is supposed to sound like reproducibility as a word, and but reproducibility.
Very clever pun,
Cup,
I must say.
Yes, it's a very British humor, in fact, and it is a journal club, or it's a grassroots initiative that originates from the UK and specifically from the Oxford University in 2018, and 3 enthusiastic researchers, Sam Parsons, Sophia Kruvel, and Amy Orban. I hope I pronounced everyone's names correctly. They were the founding members of this whole community that got picked up by many places around the world, and here we are now. And last time I checked, it was in 121 institutions in 28 different countries now, including Finland itself. So it's quite impressive how far and how broadly it's spread over such a short amount of time. And I would consider a few years is a short amount of time.
It's really great that we have this club now in Finland as well, but it's indeed related very much, and then it's a very nice pun to reproducibility without tea drinking. And also here, I think in Europe, UK has been having a leading role because we can talk also about reproducibility networks. and UK Reproducibility Network was the first one which was established in 2019, but it was traced back to a meeting in 2015 with several organizations in UK where they discussed the challenges and opportunities for improving the reproducibility and reliability of biomedical research in UK. And there they found out that there was a desire to address these issues, but no single organization had a clear responsibility for doing so. And then in 2019, actually 1 year after first ReproducibiliTea Club, the UK Reproducibility Network was organized. And these networks are peer-led consortia that aim to improve research practices by promoting, supporting, and investigating factors contributing to robust research. And also these networks started to grow and expand all over Europe. After UK, there was German and Swiss reproducibility networks. And my Swiss colleague, Hanno Wörbel, reached out to me in 2021. And together with colleagues in Finland, we established also Finnish reproducibility network.
I see. So right now, is it more of a European thing, or are there other countries from the global south or America involved?
Actually, it is global already. So
okay.
There are reproducibility networks in more than 20 countries, including Australian network, Brazilian, Canadian, and most recent addition was African reproducibility network.
Okay, so that's pretty global, yeah.
I think the last decade could have been called a decade of reproducibility crisis because for me it started around 2010 or so. In my field, in animal studies, behavioral studies, people already were, of course, aware about issues with replicating the findings from another labs, and then there were different reasons, of course, for that. One is biological reasons, working with animal models and model organisms, but another, what was found out by several systematic reviews, was that publication and reporting of many essential parameters was very poor in animal age, animal sex, methodology for the experiments, data analysis, etc. There was many things lacking or poorly reported, and therefore special guidelines were worked out in order to improve it. At the same time, there were, for example, publications and reports by Glenn Begley in 2012-2013, raised standards for preclinical research, cancer research, and 6 red flags for suspect work, where he also identified the same issues, blinding, randomization, data analysis. So people started to look more critically on the publication records and started to think about what is causing these problems, and from there I think the crisis itself may be thought as something acute, but this is like a chronic problem, and then we should now, and then by now we change the attitude towards it, like it is an opportunity to improve, and our obligation to improve the situation, and all reproducibility networks also working then towards this issue.
In my own world, the reproducibility crisis appeared about a year ago when I attended a workshop organized by Voitele actually for data reproducibility. And as a student, I've been mostly just, brewing in the lab and just thinking, okay, how do I improve my experiment, or how do other people are doing things, thinking that this is just sometimes a me problem. But then it really opened the eyes to see that, well, not only is it a me problem, but it is really something much larger than an individual, and it really has the systematic underlying base to it. And this is really something that opened my eyes in a way. And I agree with Vodali that it is coming to a level of first an individual, that we are doing something ourselves to improve, but also something more global as a community, that there are some things we can do all together to improve this. And I think this reproducibility initiative also comes into play here because it tackles both. So on the one hand side, when you're going to a local club, you are educating people and individuals how to do things right, how, like, what are the current problems nowadays, but also on more broad scale, because it's spread out so much all across the world. It shows that it really has the relevance to everyone, and it makes us stronger as a community because we can get inspired by others. Maybe we can get stronger influence on things and on the system itself. So I believe there is a lot of power in this.
Yes, I mean, in my own field of atmospheric sciences, reproducibility has not really been an issue, but that's because probably no one's looked into the fact that whether it's an issue or not. Right now, we basically have the problem of, if you have an article that sort of is supporting warming, then a certain section of people or the political establishment starts retweeting your article, and your article gets cited a lot. And suppose you say something which is like, okay, maybe here the warming is not happening too much, or there is some kind of cooling happening, which does happen in certain parts of the Earth system. Then suddenly, people look into your funding, that are you funded by big oil or those sort of things. So there are a lot of problems even in my field, and reproducibility is a problem that, with more and more open data on Zenodo and all these other platforms, I guess there are a lot of other people also are looking into, things, whether the plots and stuff that are produced in papers, are they real or not. So there are a lot of these freelance people like Data Colada and a lot of other people I know who routinely check some of these papers that get highly cited, that whether it's everything is all right or not. So from here, I guess we can talk a little more about the thin line of bending rules to fit a certain narrative, because we certainly have a lot of narratives in our field.
I think reproducibility can be thought on different levels indeed. One is at individual or group level, caring only about getting your studies, experiments aligned with some previous ones, and replication of the experiments, so on. But eventually it depends really on it covers almost everything in good scientific practice: the transparency, openness, open data sharing, etc. I could give an example of recent large-scale project, the reproducibility in cancer biology, that was led by Tim Errington and Brian Nosek. They aimed to replicate key findings from 53 high-impact cancer biology papers published in 2010 to 2012. And during a long period, the project encountered significant challenges, including insufficient methodological details in original publications, again, the poor publication and reporting, but also a limited cooperation from some original authors who didn't want to share the data or were not cooperative towards reproducibility. So there are a lot of biases and a lot of incentives that, despite our nice ideas when we talk to each other, that hinder or prohibit this open data sharing and good practice.
And of course, in biomedical field, also a lot of things cost money. because in physics, for example, you can send a satellite to orbit around the sun, and there's a huge pool of data available for everyone to use, so you don't need to spend money to purchase that data, or you don't even spend that much time collecting it, because as you sleep, it keeps on orbiting and collecting the data. I know this because my partner is from solar physics. But then in biomedical field, for example, what we're doing in our lab is we are working on mice and doing mouse experiments, and just growing a mouse model itself will take a lot of a budget from you, plus doing experiments, and if something fails, then it's a big loss. So even if we wanted with all our time and enthusiasm to replicate certain studies, we're largely limited by time, and we're limited by finances. So yes, for example, as I assume, there's every model is supposed to be archived in some banks, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, that if somebody wants to replicate the model, there should be some sperm samples available for people to take, and they can make this. But I just wonder how many people will actually go all the way to do this and to do the exact same experiment. And then, of course, we are then left out trying to kind of make sense out of somebody else's data on this type of mouse, and then see how this would be replicated in our cell studies, which will be completely different. So we're trying to do a lot of very rough assumption, at least in biomedical fields. And then essentially what is happening is we're comparing one animal to another and to another, comparing mice to humans, comparing a full organism to cells, and there are lots of levels of complexity. And add to that also statistical analysis, openness of science, and so on, and it just becomes too mind-blowing and far complex than we thought. And perhaps this is also where this difference in the fields also is very prominent. In physics, perhaps it's a bit easier to simplify certain concepts or certain models compared to biology, where we cannot really isolate ourselves from a full system of the cell or from a full system of a body. If we're studying one organ, we cannot really eliminate all the other factors, no matter how much we wish we could. Hope I didn't delve too much aside from the topic here.
No.
I think now when you mentioned also financial aspects, then this is really important that we do the basic research, biomedical research, preclinical research in animal models, in non-animal models, in cells, etc. But our goal eventually is to find cures and treatments for human disease. And if that fails because of poor science, then it is a huge ethical issue and a waste of funding. And so it has much more significant consequences. If the public who funds basically our research finds out that actually these researchers are doing complete nonsense, they are falsifying even the data.
I mean, there are human lives at stake.
So eventually the human lives are that we are talking about.
I mean, I remember there was actually it's now a Netflix show, in fact. It's about a doctor who basically had done some stem cell research, and that was about creating an artificial windpipe. And it was some kind of 3D printed stuff which was coated with, some stem cells, and was supposed to go into for a transplant of a windpipe. And apparently that was just bogus research. It never worked. And he basically was finding it difficult to get sort of patients on whom he could test this. So ultimately, I mean, he did test it on some patients, and it resulted in loss of life. And I think he still has the license to practice in some countries, but some countries have debarred him. And it blew up because an American journalist got hold of this entire story, and she was dating him. And in the course of the courtship, she got to know how big a fraud that person was. And now it's, in fact, a Netflix show. I just can't recall the name.
I think it is Paolo Macchiarini you are talking about.
Yes.
That was a huge scandal.
Yes, exactly. And wasn't he in Karolinska first?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
But now there are more like a high-profile researchers from NIH, others whose papers are flagged in paper, whose papers are retracted. There are papers from 2005, 2006 that have been like leading the hypothesis for Alzheimer's disease, and now they have been found to be manipulated images. So the whole field has been misled for many years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's very disheartening to see that these kind of cases come out of places like Karolinska and NIH, which are such big names in the field.
This is just a reminder that everything we read we need to take with a grain of salt. Of course, we shouldn't really start any witch hunt trying to burn everyone on a stake, or consider everything just fake research and lose complete trust. So it's not really like that at all. There is still hope, of course, but yes, we need to always take everything with criticism and make the best judgment out of everything we read.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, that public faith in science is sort of there, and it's eroding over time, because we could see that even during COVID, the all anti-masking stuff that was happening in various parts of the world, where it's known that masking did help in flattening the curve and those sort of things. It seems history now, but it wasn't that far back we were dealing with COVID.
But there was a lot of misinformation overall by non-scientists as well spreading this, so it was very complex.
Very complex problem, yes.
But this is one of the reasons and one of the good things, I think, why these reproducibility clubs are organized in order to, so they are primarily meant for young researchers, early career researchers. Of course, we invite always the senior researchers also to join us, but to have comfortable meetings to discuss these issues, because I think it still comes as a surprise to many of us how prevalent I'm not now talking too much about fraud, but even the questionable research practice, because there is a thin line between, let's say, p-hacking, exclusion, inclusion criteria, from where it starts to be fraudulent studies. And I do believe that new generations take it very, very seriously, and we are improving in future. But as we said, it requires a lot of change in the whole research culture. There is funding organizations, publishers, pressure to publish, and so on. So many things that needs to be taken into account simultaneously.
I'd like to double click on the p-hacking aspect that you talked about, because I guess a lot of our listeners who are masters or PhD researchers do use p-value on a pretty daily basis. Anyone who has anything to do remotely with statistics. So p-value, correct me if I'm wrong, generally people use like a value of like 5% or 1% or 0.01, 0.05. And it's basically to mean that there's like a 5% or a 1% chance that the result happened randomly. That's the reason why we use that sort of a p-value, right, in our statistical analysis. And so it's basically to check that whether something real is going on in your data set, or whether you get your hypothesis out of random chance. But now you talked about p hacking. So what exactly is this p hacking?
We had a excellent tea club, reproducibility club, last month. Hanna gave excellent introduction to us.
We are butchering names here today.
About statistics and how statistics can be misused. So we can, first of all, we can talk about statistical significance and then biological significance, and p-value alone doesn't tell much about biological significance, because again, you need to interpret in the context of whole experimentation. How did you calculate your sample size correctly? The variation and so on. So the p-value is not a sign of reproducibility. Actually, people don't report confidence intervals, effect sizes, other essential aspects or parameters of statistical analysis. That's one thing. But then, of course, p-hacking. Yes, we are kind of focused on this magic p less than 0.05. And we want to get there on the price, whatever it takes. So we continue sampling until we get it there, or we stop sampling when we get it there.
Or we manipulate the analysis so that it makes the p-value significant. Maybe I will not use this one, but I'll use the other analysis because it gives me statistically significant values.
You change the analysis methods. You manipulate with inclusion-exclusion criteria. Maybe there is an outlier. How do you define outlier? Have you defined it?
I just don't like that sample. I will call it outlier.
Exactly. So there are many ways how to get the p-value at desired level. And then we can ask whether it is just a bad practice or already a fraud if we do it intentionally.
And what people usually forget is what essentially p-value even is. It's a measure of probability. It's not really a definition, like a clear-cut line that says this is true and this is false, this is real, this is not real. This is the probability of something being or be happening, or the difference taking place. But by no means is it, binary 0 or 1, all or nothing type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to sort of remind oneself while working with p-values, that it's a probability at the end of the day.
Also, I think again what comes from learning the good practice, and we can distinguish between confirmatory and exploratory research and studies. So whether we have defined our study to be confirmatory is more rigorous and approach, and there we need to have a method for power calculation, etc. And their p-value also can tell something. But for exploratory research, it's more like flexible, and in this case the p-values also are less important. In fact,
I read this one line in a statistics book once, like about p-hacking. It's like rolling a dice over and over again until you get a 6, and then pretending that that's the only roll that mattered.
That's pretty much it, yes. Of course, statistics is just one tool to manipulate the data or manipulate the results. There are other ways people also can do fraud, or they can manipulate their results, and we can just touch now the tip of the iceberg, but once you start digging deeper, you just start to explore so many other things, like even words. For example, in the next club we will be having is how people can use words and just the tools of storytelling narratives to also bend the narrative to what they want to convey. So a lot of things, a lot of creative solutions to to fraud that they exist.
And I also feel that even if a mistake has been committed in a paper, a retraction shouldn't be looked down upon with so much, disgust really, because it's okay to retract something if you feel that there has been an error committed and an unintentional error committed, because that also happens every now and then.
I think it would really depend on the conditions, how you do the retraction. If it was something that you were actively trying to hide and then somebody revealed this, then probably, yes, the people will look down on you. But if it's something that you honestly decided to admit, or it was honest mistake, like I didn't realize or something, I think there should be some empathy also taken.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've heard of things where a person has realized their mistake, and then there has been pressure from the top that, okay, I mean, as long as no one gets to know about it, you don't have to raise your voice.
And now you touched
So-
also yourself upon another thing that can add to fraud, and it's pressure from the top, because
Yes.
there were reports also by people that it wasn't really their own decision to publish this data that they knew was wrong, but it was really, for example, a supervisor who was pushing them towards doing that, or some analysis or wrong approaches being taken by a student who didn't really know better.
Right. And a lot of the times, I mean, it's the student, the junior most student, who's sort of, put under the bus in these occasions.
But with publications, we trust somehow the peer review, but eventually this is a review of only 2 or 3, 4, 5 maybe maximum persons, who also may have their own biases, strengths and limitations, because nowadays the publications, the reports are so multidisciplinary, we cannot be experts in everything. And for that, the post-publication review, I think, is very important, and we should be really open on this, and even if someone questions your results, because I am not pretending to be an expert in statistics, and there are, of course, also examples. If you give the same data set, maybe a large data set, to 10 or 20 different groups of statisticians even, to analyze them, and they may come up with different results. So even statisticians do not agree on everything, but the most important is transparency, data sharing, including all the metadata, even how it was collected. So that's the most important. And someone eventually in this community hopefully can make sense out of that.
Yes. And of course, scientists are also humans with human emotions and their own agendas. So in peer review, sometimes it's not even scientific integrity, but more of a personal vendetta that may play a role in the decisions, what gets or doesn't get published. If there's a paper that a person is reviewing that contradicts their own findings, they actually surprisingly might try to push this back or try to prevent this from being published. So that's unfortunately also the reality we have to accept. There are, of course, discussions on how we can improve peer review process, maybe making this more open, publishing names of people. Just recently we had a lab meeting where we were discussing this, lots of pros and cons, so let's see how this will go. But yeah, I also think that maybe post-publication review could be one possible solution to that.
I think this directs us also again to the other side of research integrity, and there are now the consortia and initiatives how to reassess the evaluation, assessment of the researchers. What are the metrics? So we should get rid of impact factors, the number of publications, and so on. So to value the quality over quantity, openness over publications behind the paywalls and so on. So there are many things related to research integrity and culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, publications being behind a paywall is something that really angers me a lot, because it really makes science inaccessible, and we need more open science and like Creative Commons kind of thing, which is like there is like an entire open software movement. We need an open science movement of that sort. So that would be very beneficial.
And then
revolution.
Then it brings again these incentives and huge profit of publishers. The recent example where some of our Finnish reproducibility network members were also involved. This publication forum in Finland downgraded a list of a number of journals from MDPI and Frontiers.
Yes, I heard that. Yes.
And many of us, most of us have been published there, and we are probably happy with our papers. But overall, it's not even the pressure to publish from the point of view of the researcher, but there comes the pressure to publish from the publisher's side. The enormous amount of special issues, continuous emails to contribute with the paper, in unbelievably short review times. No valuable review can be done in 5 days probably, or if you are under pressure. So all these kind of things.
I would love to rant on this topic separately. I just wanted to say, because quite recently I saw data on profit margins of these publishers, and specifically Elsevier was in that example, and I just had to Google quickly the numbers. So Elsevier operates at 37% reported operating profit margin, and for comparison, Apple has a profit margin of about 24-25%. So you can imagine
that's
the extent
ridiculous. Yeah.
of how much money they're gaining from all this free labor of researchers. So I think, this is one more thing we could change.
And I can even understand the charges if they are paying, the professors or the students, graduate students who are reviewing the papers. But ultimately, everybody does this work, for free.
And it's an honor. It's considered to be an honor.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's again and indeed an interesting situation that we want to get this better with publications, for example, and reporting. But then in many personal communications, the people still say that, well, if there are some open journals like gold access journals where everything is immediately available and so on, but these journals do not have impact factors, and they don't want to publish their results there because they need it for their career, for applying the grants. They need still this impact factor. So this is still, unfortunately, a long process.
And
probably.
Even here in Finland, for PhD students, we need papers to graduate. The rules have been changing. The number of publications have been decreasing. Gladly, but still we also depend on the impact factors of the journals for the decisions to be made. For example, if we produced only one paper over 7 years, but it was in a very good journal, then we might have a chance of graduating, even having one publication. But if the journal is very low impact, then we need to publish more, because the value of the paper is significantly lower the lower the impact of the journal is. And so not only is it the progression overall as a reputation of a researcher, but also a person just cannot basically graduate and move on with their lives if they don't get to publish in a reputable journal.
So, enough talk about like the downsides of reproducibility.
What? We can keep on going. There's so much to talk about.
But on a lighter and more positive note, give me a sales pitch for people to join Helsinki Reproducibility Club, and what are the benefits? Or I mean, it's also a social gathering of like-minded people, so it's not just work. It's also fun, I guess.
First of all, if I already didn't mention it, I'm very happy that now Reproducibility Uni Helsinki exists. And when we launched Finnish Reproducibility Network, then I was aware about these ReproducibiliTea Club initiatives. And from the very beginning, I had it in my mind that like a local node for Reproducibility Network, we should have such a club. But it didn't somehow find a receptive land or ground. Until last spring, as Anastasia already mentioned, we had a workshop of enhancing quality in preclinical data led by excellent Björn Gerlach, by the way. And after this workshop, Anastasia and Henna Kallo, who participated there, suddenly approached me that we discussed reproducibility there, and then they said that, well, let's do it. And it didn't, it requires just few people who are really interested in that, who find the topics and want to do some organizational work. And from there it happened. And then maybe Anastasia can then continue.
Oh, yeah, it's important to mention that we are here sitting as representatives of the reproducibility. Actually, Uni Helsinki is our official branch name. But of course, it's a teamwork and a team effort. And we're now in 2 campuses of the University of Helsinki. In the Meilahti campus, we're 4 people, or 3 students, and Vuoteli is kind of overarching the 2 campuses now. And then 2 more new people also in Viki campus. But yes, it requires a few people to run the club. And so far, as far as it's been going, I think people have been enjoying themselves, at least, just looking at the people's faces and their reactions, and also just overall the discussions, the way they've been going. It's always nice to see that people are encouraged to speak out, and this is the major thing. It's not even so much about just educating people as to make them express themselves in the moment and have a discussion on their own. Because if they never address these issues that've been, boiling and piling up inside of them all this time, then where else are they gonna release all those steams? So in a way, this is also a place for them to do this while having a nice cup of tea. Although in Helsinki or in Finland they prefer more coffee, we serve both.
Yep.
Snacks too. Have to brag about that, if you cannot bring them by other means, at least serve snacks and drinks.
And we really want to have these clubs like interactive. So there is always so far like introductory talk by our guest whom we invite, and then some group work, and then that makes also the people come from different groups. So this is not the standard group meeting. So you meet other people from the other study backgrounds even, and then so on. So that's most important, the communication and learning to know new people, and then to understand that we may face the similar problems, but we can tackle them if we discuss it, and then to finding the better understanding, admitting and finding the better solutions.
Yeah, so in a way it is also a community building activity.
It is.
Because it really unites the campus, and also if other people from other campuses or other buildings also want to come, then
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm just surprised that Kumpula is not involved.
Just a matter of time. Trust me, it's the matter of time. Maybe by the time this gets released, there will be already a new branch. So who knows?
I think
I
we're
hope
open.
so.
Currently, it is more like a biomedical background, but yeah.
At least, because I'm also in this Reproducibility Uni Helsinki Club, but also I'm a steering committee member now of the more of a global chain, because there's like a a central hub for all of the reproducibility clubs. And at least one of my goals is also to bring other fields other than biomedical and psychology. Also, psychology seems to be, social sciences also seem to be quite prominent in this reproducibility crisis issue. But it would be nice also to see physics, chemistry, material sciences, all other fields like that being part of this.
Although you said that your field does not suffer from reproducibility crisis.
We will unveil.
I mean, maybe it's the problem isn't as bad. I'm not gonna say that it's absent. It's there, but yeah.
Yes.
Certainly, I think psychology and some of the other fields have been the worst hit, I guess.
And of course, the way we just describe how our club runs, it's just our own way. I think every club has really their own approach to how they arrange things. It doesn't mean that if our club runs like this, that all the other ones are like that too. For instance, just a few days ago, I led a journal club in Bioclues, which is an Indian community branch of reproducibility, and that was completely different because I was mostly just presenting the article myself, and then afterwards there were questions. It was more like a talk rather than discussion in between. So that's just one way of doing that, and I think what's important is to sort of know the audience and know your own community and their needs and the way things work there, what is comfortable for people there, and then play with that and go from that.
And in general, I think we talked, as our background is in biomedicine, but indeed, the reproducibility crisis and issues originate equally or even more from psychological and social sciences, indeed.
Where the data is not even quantitative, so it's even more difficult to, I guess, check for reproducibility in that sense. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Science Basement podcast. Really, thanks a lot, Anastasia and Vutele, for this wonderful episode. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as all three of us did. And if you have any questions or want to learn more about the topics we discussed today, please feel free to reach out to Anastasia or Vutele. We'll add their socials at the bottom of the episode links. And please do not forget to subscribe to the Science Basement podcast and share our podcast episodes with your friends and family. We are on all your favorite podcast platforms such as SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now starting this year, we are also on YouTube. Finally, we'd been planning for a long time, but season 5, which started this year, is on YouTube. Thanks to some new members in the Science Basement podcast team. And for past episodes, you can also check out our website, thesciencebasement.org. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. And until next time, take care and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
The Science Basement.